The pill you took this morning, are you actually sure it was real? Now think about your mother. The medicine she's taking right now, for her blood pressure, for her diabetes, for whatever keeps her going, are you sure that one's real too? Here's the uncomfortable truth. You can't actually know. Not by looking. Same box, same seal, same tiny stamped letters on the tablet itself. A fake medicine isn't built to be caught. It's built to be trusted. By you, by your pharmacist, by your own mother, who has no reason to ever suspect it. This is the economics of fake medicine. And by the end of this, you'll never look at a pharmacy shelf or your own medicine cabinet the same way again. Here's a question to sit with. If a product is dangerous enough to kill people and easy enough to test in a lab, why does it still make it onto pharmacy shelves in nearly every country on Earth? In 1990, in Nigeria, more than 100 children died after being given a cough syrup that looked, smelled, and tasted exactly like the real thing. It wasn't. A key ingredient had been replaced with a toxic industrial solvent to cut costs. Nobody who administered that medicine knew. That's not a story about carelessness. That's a story about how convincing a fake can be. And this isn't a somewhere else problem. Counterfeit medicine has been seized in the United States, across Europe, in Japan, in Australia. According to World Health Organization estimates, roughly 1 in 10 medical products in low and middle income countries is substandard or falsified, sometimes weaker than it should be, sometimes containing nothing at all. Think about a bank locker for a second. You trust it because of what surrounds it: thick steel, a lock, a guard at the door. Now picture someone building a locker that looks identical from the outside. Same steel, same lock, same uniform on the guard, except nothing inside is actually secured. You wouldn't know until the day you needed what you'd locked away. That's exactly what a fake medicine is. Not a broken product. A convincing shell wrapped around an empty promise. A fake handbag has a crooked logo if you look closely. A fake pill doesn't. Global counterfeit pharmaceutical estimates put this trade at tens of billions of dollars a year. And an industry that size doesn't run on sloppy work. It runs on precision good enough to fool a trained pharmacist. So here's where this gets genuinely strange. If this is this dangerous, and this well documented, how did an entire global industry get built around something this easy, in theory, to catch? Try this thought experiment. You open a restaurant. Before a single customer walks in, you've spent months on permits, health inspections, licensed chefs, and ingredient sourcing. Now imagine someone photographs your menu overnight and opens a knockoff next door by morning. Same dishes, same prices, none of the inspections, none of the safety checks. That gap between what it costs to do something properly and what it costs to fake it is the entire foundation of this industry. Developing one real drug can cost hundreds of millions of dollars and take over a decade once you count every trial, every safety test, every regulatory hurdle. All of that shows up in the final price. And that price is exactly where the opportunity opens. Here's a strange parallel. When a huge concert sells out in minutes, a second market for tickets appears almost overnight. Scalpers, resellers, counterfeits sold outside the gate. Nobody planned that market. The gap between what people wanted and what was actually available created it automatically. Medicine works the same way, except the ticket is someone's health, and the stakes are considerably higher than a missed show. In 2012, several U.S. medical clinics unknowingly purchased counterfeit vials of a cancer drug called Avastin, vials that, according to FDA findings, contain no active ingredient at all, sold to cancer patients who believed they were receiving real chemotherapy. That case became one of the clearest public illustrations of exactly how far into a trusted market this problem can reach. And the profit math explains why. A convincing fake pill costs a fraction of what the real drug costs to produce. No clinical trials, no safety testing, sometimes no active ingredient whatsoever. Interpol has noted that counterfeit pharmaceuticals can out-earn narcotics trafficking while historically carrying far lighter legal penalties in many countries. Sell fake heroin and you're facing serious prison time almost anywhere. Sell fake antibiotics in some jurisdictions, and the consequence might be a fine, enormous demand, a real price gap, cheap production, low legal risk, no mastermind required, just an obvious gap left wide open. But manufacturing a convincing fake in a back room is only step one. Getting it past pharmacists, doctors, and border inspections into an actual patient's hand, that's a completely different machine. Here's a mystery worth solving. How does a fake product move through a system that's supposedly checked at every single step, without anyone along the way noticing? You've ordered something on Amazon before. It doesn't teleport to your door. It moves through a warehouse, onto a truck, through a sorting center, onto another truck, and finally your porch. Now imagine someone quietly swaps what's inside the box at just one of those stops. By the time it reaches you, the packaging looks completely untouched. You'd have no reason to suspect a thing. That's exactly how a counterfeit enters a real pharmaceutical supply chain. Not through one obvious weak link, but through dozens of handoffs, any one of which can be the swap point. A manufacturer, a regional distributor, a repackager nobody's watching closely, an online seller shipping from an address that changes every few months. In one of the largest coordinated crackdowns on this exact problem, Interpol's Operation Pangaea, running annually across more than 100 countries, has resulted in the seizure of tens of millions of illegal and counterfeit medical products in a single year. That number alone tells you how much was moving through the system before anyone intervened, and seizures only capture what got caught. Online pharmacies make the whole thing worse, and here's why that should worry you specifically. A convincing website costs almost nothing to build, and looks exactly as trustworthy as a legitimate one. No physical inspection required, no pharmacist checking a seal in person. Picture airport security trying to check every single passenger's luggage, except there are only 3 guards for 10,000 travelers a day. Most bags simply never get opened. That's roughly the real inspection capacity many countries have for the millions of medicine shipments crossing their borders every year. Remember this rule? The more handoffs a supply chain has, the harder it becomes to trace exactly where something went wrong. Every extra layer is one more place a fake can slip in unnoticed. Which raises a genuinely strange question. If the system leaks this much, why does anyone actually end up buying a fake at all? Wouldn't people just notice? Here's a fact that might surprise you. Almost nobody who buys a counterfeit medicine does it on purpose. Nobody walks into a pharmacy and asks for the fake version. So how does that happen? Picture buying a used car from a dealership with a spotless showroom, clean paperwork, and a salesperson who says all the right things. Except the odometer's been quietly rolled back. You didn't choose to be deceived. The deception was built specifically so you'd never think to check. That's exactly how counterfeit medicine finds its way to real patients. People aren't hunting for fakes. They're hunting for medicine they can actually afford, medicine that's in stock, medicine they need right now. And counterfeiters have simply positioned themselves exactly where that search leads. High prices push people toward cheaper sources, and cheaper sources are exactly where fakes concentrate. Shortages make it worse. When a hospital genuinely runs out of a critical drug, there's far less time to verify where a replacement supply actually came from. Buying online adds distance a physical pharmacy never had. You can't smell it, weigh it, or examine it before it lands on your porch. Here's the detail almost nobody considers. Most people simply don't know. Counterfeiting is even a realistic risk for the specific drug they're buying. It's like assuming a bank teller would never hand you counterfeit cash. You're not trained to suspect it, so it never crosses your mind. And in an actual emergency, a sick child, a parent needing insulin tonight, careful verification is usually the first thing sacrificed for speed. In regions with limited healthcare access, a questionable but available medicine can feel like the only option next to no treatment at all. People don't buy fake medicine because they want fake medicine. They buy what they believe is real, under conditions, price, shortage, distance, urgency, that make checking almost impossible. Which brings up the biggest question in this whole documentary. When that trust turns out to be wrong, who actually absorbs the cost? Here's something that sounds almost too simple to be true. A single fake pill can damage people who never even took it. Think of a house. Everyone notices the paint, the furniture, the windows. Almost nobody thinks about the foundation until it cracks, and suddenly the whole house is in trouble. A fake medicine works exactly like that crack. It looks small and contained. It never actually stays that way. The most immediate cost lands on the patient, a treatment doing nothing while a disease keeps progressing, or in the worst cases, Direct harm from whatever the fake was actually made of. Families absorb what comes next. Extra medical bills, lost income, sometimes grief that never had to happen. Nigeria's 1990 poisoning case wasn't an isolated tragedy. It triggered years of rebuilt regulatory systems, new testing requirements, and a national reckoning with how a trusted product had turned deadly. Here's the part that's almost invisible. Doctors absorb a cost, too. When a patient doesn't respond to a treatment that should be working, a physician's first instinct is rarely, maybe this medicine was never real. It's maybe the disease is worse than we thought. That misread can send an entire treatment plan in the wrong direction for weeks. Governments absorb enforcement costs and public trust damage. Insurance providers absorb the cost of prolonged, ineffective treatment cycles. And real pharmaceutical companies absorb reputational damage every time a counterfeit wearing their name fails someone, through no fault of their own. One crack, an entire structure affected. That's the actual scale of the damage, never contained to a single bad transaction, but rippling straight through an entire healthcare system. Given how big that damage is, here's the obvious next question. If the harm is this well understood, why haven't governments already shut this down? ACT6. Why it's so hard to stop. Go back to that airport security image for a second. 3 guards, 10,000 bags a day. Now scale that up to the entire planet, and you start to understand the actual size of this problem. Legitimate pharmaceutical shipments number in the millions every year, moving through air freight, sea containers, and postal systems across nearly 200 countries, each running its own rules and its own idea of how carefully to check. Here's the structural trap. A counterfeit operation can manufacture in one country, ship through a second, repackage in a third, and sell in a fourth, and each of those countries enforces its own laws with very little coordination with the others. Picture a relay race where every runner is following a different rule book, and nobody agreed in advance on where the baton actually needs to go. That's cross-border enforcement in a single sentence. Inspection capacity is the real bottleneck. Most countries simply don't have enough trained staff or lab equipment to physically examine more than a small slice of what crosses their border. And online platforms erase geography entirely. A seller can run a server in one country, a warehouse in another, and reach a buyer anywhere on Earth faster than most regulatory systems were ever built to respond to. This isn't a story about governments not trying. It's a story about a global network that outgrew the tools built to police it. Tools designed for a contained world, now facing a borderless one. Which raises the uncomfortable question that closes this chapter. Is this getting easier to stop, or is it about to get significantly worse? Here's a twist worth sitting with. The same technology fueling this problem might also be the best shot at ending it. On one side, counterfeiters are getting sharper tools. AI-generated packaging can now copy a brand's fonts, holograms, and security seals with far less skill required than it used to take. Better printing technology, once locked behind expensive industrial equipment, is now dramatically more accessible. Online pharmacies keep multiplying faster than regulators can check which ones are real. Think about a phone battery for a second. The exact same battery technology that drains fast on a cheap device can be engineered to charge in minutes on a good one. Same underlying tech, completely different outcome depending on who's using it. That's exactly what's happening with authentication technology right now. QR verification lets a patient scan a package and instantly check whether that specific batch is registered, turning every phone into a mini inspection checkpoint. Serialization assigns a unique, trackable code to every individual package instead of just a whole batch. The same way a delivery company can tell you exactly where your parcel is at any moment, except now it's tracking a box of pills from factory to pharmacy shelf. The European Union's Falsified Medicines Directive, which took full effect in 2019, requires exactly this kind of unique, scannable code on most prescription medicine packaging sold across the block. One of the largest real-world tests of this system so far. It's the same pattern currency went through. Counterfeit cash used to be easy with basic printing tools. As anti-counterfeiting technology improved, watermarks, security threads, color-shifting ink, faking money convincingly got dramatically harder, even as printers everywhere got more advanced. Medicine security is walking that same road, just years behind. This isn't a story where technology quietly wins on its own. It's a genuine arms race, and the outcome depends entirely on which side scales faster. Step back, and every act of this story points at the same thing. Fake medicine is an economics problem, born from the oldest gap there is, between what people need and what they can afford. It's a trust problem, built specifically to exploit the confidence you place in a label and a familiar name. It's a global trade problem, moving through a system too vast for any one country to police alone. And it's a public safety problem whose damage never stays contained to one patient, one pill, one transaction. This industry doesn't survive by being sloppy. It survives by being convincing. The most dangerous fake medicine was never the one that looked fake. It's the one that looked real enough that nobody ever thought to check.